Welcome to Horror Party Movies, everyone, where we take our favorite horror films and make a fun game out of it. I'm Mike Conway, and today I am excited as a mofo because I am talking about my favorite horror film of all time, Scream, released in 1996. While it wasn't my first entry into the slasher genre like it is for many of you out there, it was the first one to blow my 13-year-old mind by showing me not all slasher films had to be low caliber. Sure, there are exceptions like A Nightmare on Elm Street and a few of the Halloweens, but by the time the 90s rolled around, the genre became a punchline and was dying a slow death on the direct-to-video market. Hell, even Wes Craven himself couldn't bring in the box office punch with A New Nightmare. Enter Kevin Williamson, who after seeing a news report on a series of killings at a Gainesville college, took it upon himself to write his own horror script, simply titled Scary Movie. What made the script unique was its treatment of teenagers, which made them feel authentic to the time with its witty dialogue. Instead of poking fun at the genre, it embraced it while fully acknowledging the stereotypical tropes found in the movies it was inspired by. Scary Movie would then enter a bidding war between major studios until it was brought to the attention to this piece of shit and his brother. When searching for directors, many high acclaimed horror directors were approached, but all passed. Williamson felt they wouldn't understand the script and treat it like a straight up comedy. And speaking of not understanding the script, it was this dillweed's idea to change the movie from Scary Movie to Scream, inspired by the Michael Jackson song, and move the release date to December. Ultimately, the job went to Wes Craven. Even though he passed on the script a couple times, he finally signed on once he heard Drew Barrymore was attached. And thankfully he did, because honestly I couldn't think of anyone else at the helm. He already had experience in the meta world of horror with New Nightmare, and he ended up sticking with the series until his death in 2015 with Scream 4 being his final film. So what makes this a party movie? Well, for starters, the last 40 minutes of the film takes place at a party. So grab your poison of choice and let's make a game out of it, shall we? But in the spirit of Randy, we need to set some rules. Take one drink every time a phone rings, when someone screams, anytime Ghostface gets hit, Gail insults Kenny the cameraman, when a horror movie is referenced, when Sydney takes her relationship to a PG-13 rating, take 2 doses every time a character is stabbed, a horror rule is broken, whenever a fight breaks out, Sydney punches Gail, when Randy has a weird accent, take 3 doses when Wes Craven has a cameo, Linda Blair cameos, Cotton Weary's appearance, a character is killed, Red Right Hand by Nick Cave comes on when Sydney takes her relationship to an R rating, and finish your drink with the killer's reveal. Got all that? Let's party. It all starts with a phone call. Woodboro High School student Casey Becker answers it and is greeted by a mysterious voice. She tells him it's the wrong number, but he then calls back and the two discuss all things Jiffy Pop and scary movies. She tells him her favorite scary movie is A Nightmare on Elm Street, directed by the Craven man himself, and lets us know how she really feels about the Dream Warriors.
Wow, well the first one was, but the rest sucked.
After a little harmless flirtation, she asks why he wants to know her name so badly. He distracts her away from the Jiffy overly popped as Beavis suddenly hops on the phone.
No, you listen, you little bitch. You hang up on me again, I'll cut you like a fish, understand?
Movie night then changes to trivia night with Ghostface asking her a couple horror movie questions. It is revealed her boyfriend Steve is tied up on the patio, and if she gets the question right, his life will be spared. Unfortunately, Steve gets the killer's identity wrong with Friday the 13th, and Steve is taken out. Have you seen this version in the unrated cut? Good lord. He gives her another chance, but she refuses on guessing which door he's at and tries to escape outside. She stops to see her gutted boyfriend just long enough for the audience to yell at the screen, and is finally confronted by Ghostface on the lawn. After being choked and stabbed, she sees her parents heading into the house where she tries to call for help. And man, this part really gets me. With the house now up in smoke, her mom hears her daughter being killed over the phone. Her parents then leave the house and see her hung from the tree. This scene is so iconic and perfect, and while the other sequels are known for their openings, none of them come close to this one. It was a setup inspired by both When a Stranger Calls and Psycho. Other than the trailers, the reason why this film was on my radar was because of Drew Barrymore. She was marketed the shit out of this movie, and to have her character knocked off just shy of 13 minutes was a hell of a shock. I had the same reaction to Steven Seagal in Executive Decision earlier that year. Remember that? Barrymore was originally signed on to play Sidney Prescott, but backed down to play the role. And speaking of Sidney, we then meet Sidney Prescott, played here by Neve Campbell, who was doing a little homework when Billy's boyfriend pops in like he was out of Clarissa Explains It All. This startles her, causing her pops to pop into her room. Note to parents, don't bust into a teenager's closed door. You may not like what you walk into. Trust me. Billy is feeling a little tingly down there after watching The Exorcist, and wonders why their relationship has cooled down in the past year. I don't know, Billy, maybe it's because her mother was found brutally murdered in the past year? Show some compassion and take care of those blue balls yourself, my dude. The next day, the town is ablaze with the news of the murders of Casey and her boyfriend. Sidney is interviewed by the sheriff and Deputy Riley, since the murders took place just short of the anniversary of her mother's death. Later, a party of 5 hang out at the fountain and wonder how no one told them life was going to be this way. This includes Billy Loomis, Tatum and her boyfriend Stu Mocker, and the movie nerd Randy Meeks. Sidney returns to her empty home since her father has gone out of town to some convention. While waiting on Tatum to pick her up, she catches a news report from a not-so-friend, Gail Weathers, played by Courtney Cox. We find out her mother was murdered and the killer was possibly misidentified as Cotton Wary. She dozes off and wakes to a phone call. Nope, not Ghostface, but Tatum, who is running late and is stopping off at the video store.
I was thinking Tom Cruise and all the right moves. You know, if you pause it just right, you can see his penis.
I googled it, and yes, it's true. The phone rings again, and this time it's Ghostface bringing Sexy back. He asks her about her favorite scary movie. Thinking as Randy, she plays along, shit talking about how all horror films are basically the same. The playful conversation switches when Ghostface changes his tone.
If you hang up on me, you'll die just like your mother.
Dude, not cool. Ghostface then busts in and a chase ensues, leading up to her bedroom. She locks him out and dials 911 on her dial-up internet. Billy pops in again to say that he scared the killer away while dropping his cell phone. But apparently only murderers carry cell phones, and Sidney flees downstairs and is greeted at the door by Ghostface. Whoa! Oh, it's just Dewey. Billy is arrested just in time for Tatum to show up to take her home. At the police station, Billy is being questioned with his dad with a dumbass haircut while Gail Weathers shows up looking for a scoop. She wrote a book on the death of Sidney's mother, which Sid did not like too much. Gail suspects the murders are all related and that Cotton is indeed innocent, which could help her book sales. Billy is released and talks to Sidney in the hall and continues his douchebaggery, comparing his mother leaving to Sidney's mother's death. After she storms away, he thinks again about his dad's haircut.
Stupid.
She then heads to the bathroom stall where she overhears a couple bitchy teenagers talking some mad shit about her and her mother. After they leave, she hears that she isn't alone and Ghostface appears from the stall. Whether this is actually the real Ghostface or not, he is certainly clumsy as one. Meanwhile, Gail tries to smooth talk her way into some inside news from young dorky Deputy Dewey. Guys, this scene is so freaking adorable, and you can see the actual chemistry between the two of them, which eventually led to a marriage in film and in real life, only for it to end just before Scream 4 started, which makes the reunion in Scream 5 all the more heartbreaking to watch.
I just don't see why those two can't work things out.
Due to the recent attacks, school has been canceled and a citywide curfew has been set. Stu lets everyone know there will be a party at his place and everyone is invited, except for Principal Fonzie. He spooks himself with a mask and suspects some students are still hanging around, but it's only a Wes Craven cameo, donning an iconic sweater and hat. The ogre producer of this film felt like there was too long of a break between kills from the opening, so instead of Fonzie kicking the jukebox, he ends up kicking the bucket. Back at the video store, Stu and Billy are picking out some movies for the party as Randy compares all the events to a standard slasher movie. He lashes out and Billy and Stu console him with a warm embrace. As the town shuts down, the series' iconic and unofficial theme song Red Right Hand by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds comes on. But I'll always remember the song first from this movie. The party commences with Dewey and Gale in attendance. He plays cool cop, letting the kids have a good time while Gale sneaks a camera by the TV. Later on, she finds out there is a 30-second delay from the feed. Why, I smell a setup afoot. Tatum heads to the garage to grab some more beers, which sent me into full-on puberty. Ghostface appears and is playful at first, but things escalate quickly as she figures out he's only thirsty for blood. She tries to escape through a doggy door, but gets stuck as the world's strongest garage door lifts her up and crushes her. Billy, yet again, pops out of nowhere, and he and Sydney go upstairs to talk. Poor Randy. While in Stu's parents' bedroom, Sydney confides in Billy and tells him she's afraid to end up like her mother. Turns out this conversation got them both hot and heavy and breaks one of the rules in surviving a horror movie. The rules are described by Randy after pausing Halloween. No sex, no drugs or alcohol, and never say, "I'll be right back." Dewey and Gale take a long walk together to investigate a car ditched on the side of the road, and the rest of the party hightails it out of there to see the principal being hung from the flagpole. Their speeding cars send the lovebirds into a ditch, and right before they break the first rule, Dewey sees the abandoned car is Sydney's dad. After their trip to Pound Town, Sydney begins to ask some questions she should have asked beforehand, but the conversation is cut short when Ghostface appears and slashes into Billy. A kick-ass chase scene happens and Sydney ends up being thrown off the roof like mankind off a steel cage. She sees her bestie's dead body and is taken in by Kenny the cameraman in the news van. Kenny is played by a kick-ass character actor, W. Earl Brown, who had previously worked with Wes in New Nightmare, and would be seen on the screen 2 years later as Warren in There's Something About Mary. They watch as Randy is about to be killed and Kenny rushes out to save him, but forgets the feed is on delay and oh my god, they killed Kenny! Sydney escapes through the back of the van while Dewey and Gale investigates the house. She sees the blood in the van and pops Randy in the head with a phone, dick! She speeds away, flinging Kenny off the van and swerves from hitting Sydney and crashes into a tree. Sydney heads back to the house with Dewey stumbling out with a knife in his back. Another chase ensues with her escaping yet again. She takes Dewey's gun as Randy and Stu blame each other for the killings. She shuts both of them out as Billy really sells it tumbling down the stairs. He takes the gun and lets Randy in.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Dude, you have no idea how long I've been wanting to say that. It is revealed there are two killers with Billy and Stu, which makes the question in the beginning all the better.
What door am I at?
The answer is both. They start their monologues on their motives for killing, and we find out Billy is a big old mama's boy. To make it look convincing for them to be the sole survivors to carry on the sequel, they stage a brutal stabbing attack. Gale enters and tries to shoot them, but her investigating skills overpower her knowledge for gun safety. She gets knocked out, and before Billy can shoot her, Sydney escapes and turns the table on the killers. Billy gets mad and flings the phone to Stu. This was brilliantly improvised by Matthew Lillard, as the phone wasn't intended to actually hit him. Sydney temporarily takes out Billy and is then chased by a woozy Stu. After smashing a vase over his head, she drops a TV on him. And he would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for this meddling kid. Turns out Randy wasn't killed, but he gets sucker punched in the face and Billy starts to choke Sydney. Gale awakens and blasts Billy in the chest. We get one last jump scare from Billy before Sydney delivers him a kill shot right in the jug head. As the movie comes to a close, Gale reports live from the scene as Dewey is alive and carried away in a stretcher. As promised, I'm going to show you how to make that.
I'm taking over. Until next time, it's been an honor.